spot, bringing stats like a kingpin. MMA knowledge, nieces, nephews all lean in. Breaking down fights, calling stat daddy supreme. On just a tip show, he's cooking up a dream. Uncle Weezy, he the man. Dropping fight facts, got it all on hand. He the stat attack grand. MMA guru, more than just a fan. Wanna know the numbers? Weezy got them cataloged. From the fighters reach down to how many times they dog. Just a tip living, breaking it down slick. Hit you with the knowledge, won't miss a single trick. Uncle Weezy, he the man. Dropping fight facts, got it all on hand. He the stat attack grand. MMA guru, more than just a fan. Balls deep predictions, he be making those calls. Getting in the details, opponents feeling small. From jazz to takedowns, got the whole fight ID. Uncle Weezy spitting truth, no lie, keep it G. Blow the horn, blow the horn. Stat Daddy Weezy not showing no scorn. Fight Night Kingdom, he wearing the crown. Break it down for the peeps, never looking like a clown.
Oh, yes. What's going on, everybody? It is your Uncle Weezy here. My camera is not working, so I'm going to immediately just share my screen with you so you have something else to look at here, like the stats for these fights. Not sure what's going on. It just won't. It stops and then it gets right back going again. So either way, you may hear me, you may see me at some points, but it doesn't really matter. We're here to talk about these fights. We're here to look at the stats. We're here to read these fight write-ups. The fight write-ups have not been posted to any of the platforms yet, but the link is in the description of this video. Check it out. Get on them right now. And before we start talking about this card, I want to take you through something really quick here that has been put together because of the generosity of one of our Odds Shopper members here. Our guy Leghorn in the chat put me in touch with one of his graphics guys, one of his guys that makes things happen for him in his business when he needs something put together for visual presentations. And I asked for a plug-and-play presentation where I could take my spreadsheet, load it into a web application, and then cut and paste a couple of different things like the name of the event, the date of the event, and some of the advantages or disadvantages of a fighter that I've written up in the fight write-up, and post it into something where it will spit out a slideshow presentation for us so that during Balls Deep breakdowns, I could say, okay, now we're going to break down Thomas Peterson versus Dante O'Mays. And if we look at the tail of the tape, we're going to see that even though Thomas Peterson is 3 years younger, that he's going to be at some serious size disadvantages here, being 5 inches shorter, being at a 7-inch reach disadvantage. But he is a southpaw in the southpaw versus orthodox matchup. And both of these guys are on fairly quick turnarounds with less than a 3-month layoff. We can go through Thomas Peterson's fighter profile, which is going to, and this slide is going to be much different because what I'm going to be highlighting in the fighter profile information is what we're looking at. Hang on just a second here while I share my screen with you and get something else over here. So we're going to look at like any of these fight write-ups here, like for instance, for Santos versus Lee. We'll look at these last 5 fights for Daniel Santos, win against who, on what date, and by what method, and at what line. And we do that for the last 5 fights, and we'll show the record as a favorite, as an underdog, as a pick'em, all that stuff, momentum, layoff, the streak, all that stuff. And we'll do it for each fighter in this slideshow presentation. So this would be Thomas Peterson's last 5. This would be Mays' last 5. And we would kind of talk about the trends of each fighter. And then we could take a look at the strength of schedule stats, and over here we could look at and see that Mays fighting the more experienced brand of competition, but Tom Peterson fighting the guys with the better win-loss ratios on the aggregate. Peterson showing the slightly better wins in terms of win-loss ratio on the aggregate, but he's fighting the much less experienced brand of competition. and we can just go through slide by slide distance striking. These numbers didn't load properly into this presentation. And then we'll talk about the power numbers that go along with the distance striking numbers. We go along with the grappling numbers, the control time striking numbers here, which we see that they did load properly for this particular presentation. And we could talk about, who's doing more work in the control time striking areas. It looks here like both of these guys are getting outlanded in these positions, but Peterson's actually doing a little bit more damage than Dante. And then you can take a look at the control time numbers, the strengths and weaknesses of each fighter, which will be bullet point presented. And then, the pick and the best bets. So it'll be a really good way to go get through everything and take you through the methodology the same way for every single fight, which is something that I've been doing for a long time now. So, and I'm hoping that, eventually this kind of gets to even a better visual place with some help for, like a web-based application or something like that. So it's not so plain, but even in this format right here, I think this is going to be a great way to step up the presentation value of these shows that we do for you guys here on Odds Shopper and really give you access to some of the best content that you guys deserve for being the ones that are supporting my work. So appreciate you guys hanging out. That's a look into what we're going to be looking at, hopefully after the time off, which is coming up after next week. So we're going to try to get through all these fights today. We're going to try to break out of a losing streak right now. 3-week losing streak for me. We lost a half unit last week, very close to even. And last week, the reason that it didn't work out was because, a little bit of confidence problems here. I had finish-only bets on the ass shaving of the week, Surrey City. I had a finish-only bet on Juliana Miller. But what I should have just been doing is betting both of their money lines, but I didn't get to the money line bets. That cost me some money. The finish-only bets were great bets. Got them at the right prices, but neither one of them cash. We just didn't get the bounce that go our way. But Juliana Miller was the only one close to finishing the Petrovic fight, and City was the only one who was getting close to finishing Cameron Smotherman. So unfortunately, and I didn't track the probability parlay because I already had a 3-unit bet on Montel Jackson. Jackson's money line was in the parlay. And if I had been a little bit more confident, I would have just tracked that and we'd have been up 2 units. And then I could have had a little bit more if I had just went with the CD and Miller money line bets in addition to the finish only props, which were very safe bets that I should have been willing to add on to. So down 0.5 units. The reads that I was willing to back with my money were pretty good. We saw when Miesha Tate did get one takedown that she almost finished the fight, but it was surprising to see her only get a takedown in 1 of 3 rounds there. And bummer of a week because we lost 6 units the week before that, but we're going to try to get it back this week. And I've already got a few money line bets, and I just finished up the majority of the write-ups, and there's going to be some more bets coming late night tonight and tomorrow probably after probability, after we kind of get through all of the spots that are plus EV, and then we can find those spots that stick out where we want to take some prop shots on the spots that make sense after we get through all of the full card breakdown here today. So I tried to make this available for free on the internet, and I gave people an opportunity to sign up. I said if we get 5 people to sign up after I place this tweet, that I will put this out there for free on the internet. So hopefully 4 more people sign up because we already got 1 sign up. But if I get 4 more, I'm going to put this out for free live on the internet. And if that does wind up happening, hello to everybody that watches on the replay. And if you look at the link in the description of this video, you get a link for 50% off your first month's membership to the Odds Shopper program, which is $25 a month. But with that coupon, it'll only be $12.50. And you can get access to all the phenomenal work, including the betting models for each fight, whether they're the prop betting models or the over-under betting models, the matchup stats for each fight, not just compared to each other, but also compared to the divisional benchmarks, the individual fighter stats, the fight write-ups, access to the Discord, access to all the tracked bets, and just a great time to hang out with the people in the Discord as well, where we share information, we talk fights, and it's a great way to support your content creators. So for those of you who might be watching this on a replay for free later on this week, if some people step up and decide to be a part of this community, join us. We'd love to have you. But for the guys that are watching live now, that are the people that are supporting my work, I truly appreciate you guys. And I'd like to say thank you for being part of the community here, because this is how I am able to sustain and continue doing this work for you guys, and help us all hopefully be MMA bettors and make a little bit more money betting on the sport that we love to watch. So I'm trying to get my camera to work here. It just won't. And I think maybe my camera might have finally crapped out, you guys. It might have finally said, you know what, Weezy, you got about 3.5 years out of me, and everything that's made in China is a total piece of shit that has a, maybe 24 to 36 month shelf life before you have to buy a new one. So yeah, man, let me see if I can go to the settings here and get my just my regular webcam. Yeah, and that one's just not working at all. So I don't know what's going on here with the camera, but I appreciate you guys hanging out here, and the information is going to hit just the same whether you guys see me or not, because we're going to be talking fight write-ups, we're going to be talking statistics, we're going to be talking betting lines, and we're going to be talking who wins the fights, who cashes the bets, and we're going to enjoy watching this pay-per-view card, which is really good from top to bottom here on Saturday night. UFC 315, headlined by Belal Muhammad and Jack Della Maddalena, in the co-main event for the women's flyweight championship of the world. We got Valentina Shevchenko versus Manon Fiorot. But we're going to start with the first fight of the night after I talk to you guys and say what's up to everybody that's hanging out in the chat with their Uncle Weezy, who for some reason cannot be seen due to horrible equipment that's cheap as shit from China. And I mean, I absolutely echo this sentiment 100%. Free the Hood Wolf. He ain't done nothing wrong. Let's get into the Discord here and find those absolutely beautiful graphics that my guy Ramora made for us. And I mean, like, you're not going to find this kind of quality work anywhere else in the world, you guys. And got pictures of Dante Mays in here. We got a bunch of good stuff, but when it comes to the graphic arts, the people who do things, we're gonna free the Hood Wolf. He ain't do no wrong. Yeah, dude, we got to get some money on that commissary account, and we even got the Hood Wolf is actually in our Discord community here. As a matter of fact, I told him that Jasmine Jasudavicius was going to win, and the Hood Wolf said to me, "That's what I said, and if you go against the Hood Wolf, you're going to get bunned." So, yeah, I'm going to get bunned, evidently, here, according to the Hood Wolf. But, our guy is right more often than he's not. So, yeah, it's good to see our guy in here doing his thing. But let's see who else is hanging out in here. We've got Braden saying that he's ready for the new format. Yeah, this is going to be cool, you guys. It's not completely done yet. There's still going to be some bugs to work out, and still maybe some graphic stuff getting fixed here. And there's something I need to do on my end coding-wise that's going to hopefully really step up the value of the fighter profile information when we talk about the trends at the beginning of every Balls Deep breakdown. We've got Flo in the room saying, "Oi!" And we got Kadeep Montana saying Hood Wolf did nothing wrong. And it's true. I mean, these are all 15 of arrests I'm hearing are completely trumped up charges. So we got to free the Hood Wolf. We got Jordan Schaefer in the room saying, "Onward to the drum board, fellas. We got to get back to the drum board. 3-week losing streak. And I should have won 2 of those 3 weeks. So We got to get back to the drum board and get a big positive week underneath us here. We got Sam saying, "Oi, let's get a free Hood Wolf going in the chats." Let's go. We got Nick saying, "How is Hood Wolf doing? Anyone know?" Asking for a friend. We got to find out, dude. Hopefully we'll be able to call the prison live on Friday's Just the Tip show. Yeah, camera difficulties. I wasn't kidding you guys. We got Sam saying, "I'll never get away from Dante Mace." We got Kadeep saying, "Am I the only one feeling bummed we can't see the Don Uncle Weezy live?" I don't know what's going on with my camera. It's an absolute shame. I'm trying, I swear I'm trying, but it's just not working. We got Roger Base Afflicted in the room with the hat. What's up, Roger? We got Jordan saying, "Time for the leech, Lee Jingling to make some cameras." That's probably going to be his next job, man. We got Kadeep saying, "Oi." We got Kadeep saying, "Yes." And we got Olajuwon Dream, the only man who did sign up after I posted that tweet, stepping into the room saying, "Oi." Yes, what is up, Olajuwon Dream? 4 more like you, and the public is going to get this show for free this week. So I'm fired up to get into these fights with you guys. I'm going to put the fight write-ups back on the other page, and you guys can follow along because the link to the fight write-ups is in the description of this video. And we're going to start off with the first fight of the night, which is going to be Brad Katona versus Bekzat Almakhan. Now, if you guys watched the Die Hard MMA podcast last night, you're going to hear me break down this fight the exact same way because I just read out the summary that's in the fight write-ups, but I'm going to read it again because it's thorough, just like all my summaries always are. And we're going to talk about Katona versus Almakhan. And let me get the betting line up there for you guys as well. Brad Katona sitting around plus 141 right now. Bekzat Almakhan minus 161. And the fight doesn't go to decision at plus 225 for this fight. So this is an interesting prospect versus veteran fight in the bantamweight division to start off the card. Brad Katona is an 18-fight veteran who knows how to win minutes, bank rounds, and edge out close decisions. He's well-rounded, well-tested, and he has top-notch fight IQ and knows when to use what weapons. Brad's durability can always be counted on, as can his in-fight decision-making. Bekzat Almakhan is a 27-year-old prospect from Kazakhstan with an impressive 11-win and 2-loss pro record. He made his UFC debut on short notice against an elite fighter in Umar Nurmagomedov, and he held his own and even dropped Umar with a big shot in the first round. Bekzat is low volume, but he has big power in his strikes, and he has a 9-win and 0-loss career record to the knockout. He has solid offensive and defensive grappling that he either uses in reverse to keep fights standing so he can land big strikes on the feet, but he also can mix in some offensive wrestling in order to win minutes. How Bekzat fits into this division is still a bit of an unknown because he fought a decent level of regional scene competition in Kazakhstan, but then made his UFC debut against an opponent that's way out of his league. Brad Katona is a much more sensible test for Bekzat, and I'm interested to see how he handles it. It's always good to back Brad Katona as an underdog because he fights close with everyone. He's notoriously difficult to finish. He has a great chin and the ability to dictate where the fight takes place and the fight IQ to know when to take the fight where. He stays busy with his offense in all areas of the fight, and he's always in top condition. Brad is a good test for any young fighter, especially the ones who are finishers, so you can find out how they perform when they need to win minutes in order to win the fight. I think Bekzat is going to be live to land big shots while this fight is on the feet, but Brad should be the busier fighter with better footwork and lateral movement. I also rate Katona as the guy more likely to win minutes in the clinch with his dirty boxing and on the mat with his takedowns, top control, and ground and pound. Bekzat only has one career win by decision, while Brad has 10. And since Brad is so difficult to finish, I think this fight is going to play out a lot closer than the line indicates it will. Brad doesn't really put stamps on his fights, but he's been in there against much more experienced and tested fighters and fought close with pretty much all of them, including Merab Dvalishvili. Bekzat is a really promising prospect who appears to be well-rounded and dangerous. He's only 27 years old. He had the toughest possible debut you could have, and he gave a good account of himself, and now he's getting a much more winnable fight, but it's against a more experienced, tested, and well-rounded opponent who can find your weaknesses, exploit them, and push a pace. I'm going to pick Brad Katona to win this fight by decision, but like all Brad Katona fights, I think it's going to be close. Bekzat has a lot of moment-winning upside at distance striking range, and I think his anti-grappling is good enough to limit the amount of success Katona will have with his wrestling. But I trust Katona to do more, make the right decisions, and lean on his experience and guile to get his hand raised at home in Canada. So the pick is going to be Brad Katona to win by decision in Canada, his home country, over the guy from Kazakhstan, the Turan warrior, Bekzat Almakhan. Brad Katona by decision's the pick. And I bet Brad Katona money line for 1 unit at plus 158. That line has moved in our favor a little bit. Now it's about plus 140 something. And I think the over 2.5 rounds at minus 325 is a pretty solid parlay piece for this fight. But, if there's somebody that could finish Katona, it is this kid Almakhan. He definitely hits hard, and I think he's got a lot of moment-winning upside. And it's not like Katona is like is some defensive wizard. He just really kind of relies on his durability. And at some point in his career, that's going to leave him. So I kind of feel like Almakhan by KO is probably his best path. And that's sitting at about plus 300 here. But Brad Katona has never been finished as a professional. So obviously Bekzat's decision prop at plus 120 is the most juiced. But my model likes that quite a bit. But we've never really seen Bekzat be a guy who wins minutes, right? Only one of his 11 career wins comes by decision. And that makes sense because when you watch his fights, he's low volume and he will wait to counter and he trusts his power. So at this level, if he's not landing powerful shots, I can see the minutes of the fight kind of getting away from him and maybe him losing rounds while he waits to land a big shot that may or may not land. So I think Katona at the plus money, being the more experienced guy, the really dependable minute winner, and the guy with really the better experience and the more reliable chin, I like him to get the job done here by decision. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. We got Grayer Davis in the room saying, "Oh, yes, what is going on, Grayer? I'm glad you're hanging out with us live here." And let's move on to the next fight, which is a very, very interesting fight. I'm really looking forward to this one. We've got Daniel Santos going up against Jeong Lee. This is very close to a pick'em, but Daniel Santos earlier in the week, I think when I made the spreadsheet, was a minus 180 favorite. Let's actually look at that here on fightodds.com. Santos, who's currently plus 101, opened up at minus 175 and was sitting at minus 200 for a while, and minus 180 and minus 185 for at least a day and a half before a bunch of money came in on the Jeong Lee side, to where now it's flipped to Jeong Lee being a favorite in this fight. So let me get the stats up on the screen for you guys, and let's talk about this fight. So, this fight is going to be a barn burner. Neither one of these guys shies away from a scrap. Both guys have finishing ability wherever the fight goes, and neither one of these guys slows down later in fights. Daniel Santos has been away from the octagon for almost 2 years because he's had to pull out of 3 different scheduled fights over that stretch. Daniel cannot stay healthy, and it's clear that the weight cut to 135 pounds was not helping his ability to stay active as a professional. The Shoot-to-Box Diego Lima product is a dynamic, well-rounded fighter who brings relentless pressure, lots of output, very reliable durability, flashy striking, and opportunistic Brazilian jiu-jitsu to the cage, and he's always down to swing dicks in the center of the cage until one man falls. Now, Jeong Lee is a well-rounded fighter who's been training at Fight Ready in Scottsdale, Arizona. Lee's on a 9-month layoff after being knocked out by Haider Emil in his last fight, but prior to that, he was on an 8-fight win streak. He's the former Road FC featherweight champion. He finished 3 straight wins inside of a minute during that win streak. Just before Road to UFC, it started with a less than 1 minute knockout, and then he got 2 more finishes on Road in less than a minute of the first round. So I'm hoping Daniel Santos has no issues, makes it to the scale, and looks good at his new weight class, because I enjoy watching this kid fight due to the fan-friendly style that he brings. And it's been a while since we've seen the dynamic and exciting Jeong Lee in the cage. So it's good to see him return against someone who's going to put on an exciting fight. I think Lee is the more technical and precise fighter. He has better defense. He uses his height and reach well, and his offensive and defensive grappling are both looking to be UFC level. Lee has real power in his strikes. He's opportunistic with his Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and he does a solid job of mixing the martial arts for a young fighter. But this isn't going to be a pretty fight where Lee will be allowed to lean on his technical superiority, because Santos is going to pressure forward relentlessly, eat one to give one, put you on your back foot, and make your height and reach advantages much less useful. We saw Arce successfully deal with Santos's pressure by effectively striking off his back foot while moving laterally, but that is not Lee's game. Lee likes to find precise counters when his opponents crash the pocket, and he has the power to finish fights when he lands. It's really hard to pick this fight because I think Santos has the perfect style to deal with Lee's athletic gifts. I could see Santos's chin holding up and his pressure and output breaking Lee once he realizes that Santos is going to refuse to fuck off. But I can also see the ring rust due to a 23-month layoff, as well as the short notice and health problems on the Santos side, causing him to come into this fight at less than the best version of himself. That being said, the move up to 145 could be exactly what Santos needs to stop making these brutal weight cuts that his body was clearly struggling with. I think Santos is a better fighter than Lee, and it's because of his unique combination of a well-rounded skill set combined with his style of constant pressure, relentless pace, and reliable durability. If we get a healthy version of Willie Catch Santos, that is best suited to fight his pressure-heavy style at 145. I think he wins this fight. However, if he's not ready, if he has another bad weight cut, if the 23-month layoff gets to him, then I see Lee winning the minutes of this fight and getting his hand raised by decision due to how durable Santos is. So I'm going to go with the guy that I think is the better fighter, and that's Daniel Santos. Now, I know that there's a lot of narrative issues. There's a lack of recent activity. There's injuries that could be still problems today. But if you ask me which one of these guys is the better fighter and has more upside, and I'm going with Daniel Santos, because when you have the combination of pressure, output, and durability, it is a very, very difficult combination of skills to deal with in an opponent, and Santos absolutely has that. And unless you can be a perfect and precise counter striker like Julio Arce with brilliant footwork, you're just not going to be able to deal with this guy's pressure over a 3-round fight. And the fact that he's so extremely durable, and that durability hopefully holds up a little bit better for him even now at 145, that he's not making these stupid weight cuts, that potentially we could see the best version of Daniel Santos. I need to see him on the scale first, though. Make sure that he's not too much smaller than Lee before I officially pick him. But for now, I'm going with Willie Cat Santos to win this fight by second round knockout. So that is going to be the pick for this fight. We are going with the Willie Cat to win by KO in round number 2. And I think he's going to put Jeong Lee on the back foot. I think he can mix in some grappling here. But that's really not Santos's go-to. He really just goes to pressure and output, backs his opponent up to the cage, and looks for a lot of flashy shit. Spinning back kicks to the body, head kicks, some flying knees. He's going to try to knock you out in highlight reel fashion. But I think that if when you watch the weigh-ins, it's going to make it pretty clear which way you're going to need to go in this fight, because you're going to see either Santos that looks fresh and ready to go, or you're going to see a guy who's pulled out of 3 fights in the last 2 years and who just maybe isn't ready to fight at this level anymore due to health problems and things that he can't control. So very, very interesting fight. A fight that I have no bets on right now, because I think it really is best to wait until the weigh-ins to get some very necessary information on a guy that's been away from the cage for almost 2 years at this point in Daniel Santos. But I am picking Daniel Willie Cat Santos to win this fight by second round knockout. Let's go to the next fight, which is going to be Marc-Andre Barriault going up against Bruno Silva. We got Barriault as a -140 favorite here. Silva, the +120 underdog, and the fight doesn't go to decision here. Is juiced up at about -200. So they're saying this thing is going to finish inside the distance about 2/3 of the time. And yeah, this is one of those fights that we talk about being like a 1-800 gambler fight, because you're betting on 2 guys that are well past the primes of their career. And you got a guy in Barriault who the desire and the heart still appear to be there, but the chin is just completely dust. And then you got a guy in Bruno Silva who just looks completely disinterested in the cage, and the desire appears to be completely gone. But the hardware still seems to be there, as he's still got some power, and he still has the durability to go a full 3 rounds, even when he's getting his ass shaved by his opponent. So very interesting fight to break down, and probably a terrifying fight to bet on. But I still feel there's a side here. But this is such a difficult matchup to cap. Both of these guys are cold fighters who are on their way out of the sport. Excuse me. Marc-Andre Barriault is on a 3-fight losing streak. He's been knocked out in his last 2 losses, and his chin is absolute dust, which is terrifying for Mark because he's always relied on his durability. Bruno Silva is on a 4-fight losing streak, and he's coming off a career worst performance against Ismail Nardiev, where even the announcers were saying Bruno didn't want to be in there. This fight being in Canada is important for Mark. Bruno is already mentally checked out of the sport, so it looks like they're trying to give the 14-fight UFC veteran one more win on his way out of the organization in front of his hometown fans. These guys are most likely going to stand and bang. Mark should be the one moving forward, throwing more volume and keeping a heavier pace. He has the ability to win minutes at distance striking range as well as in the clinch, and Mark's superior conditioning and output should help him win the second and third rounds if Bruno doesn't find an early knockout. It's really hard to back either of these guys at the moment. Mark still looks like he wants to be there, but his chin has not been able to hold up, while Bruno's hardware and durability still appears to be intact. But the desire to be in the octagon fighting doesn't appear to be there. I'm going to lean towards the hometown fighter who still wants to be in there in Marc Barriault. Mark is the much better minute winner in this matchup. He has better conditioning, which I think is very important in this fight. The crowd will be behind him, and his dirty boxing is a lot better. He spends a lot of time in the clinch. Bruno will be live to land a big shot on the feet because Mark's chin is wrecked. The passion and desire to be in there trying to hurt his opponent looks like it's completely gone. So I just cannot rely on Silva to find the moment that he's going to need to find to make up for the minute winning disadvantage that he is at in pretty much all areas of this fight. So Bruno historically has had excellent durability, but at this point in his career, it's definitely possible that we might even see him quit mid-fight. I think the most likely result is Barriault by decision due to Silva's durability combined with Barriault's pace and output. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Marc get a finish if Bruno decides he doesn't want to take any more damage in his career. So Marc-Andre Barriault by decision is the official pick, and I'm intrigued by the value on that line because you can see right here the Barriault money line sitting at about minus 140 is at about a 58% implied probability, but his decision prop at plus 275 is less than half that price at a 27% implied probability. And my betting model shows 2 of 5 wins by decision for Marc-Andre Barriault, 4 of 6 losses for Silva coming by way of decision. So it's saying it should be priced around 32%. We're getting a 26% price. So that Barriault by decision at plus 275 does stick out as a juicy bet, as well as Barriault by sub at plus 1600, because Bruno Silva has been finished in almost all of his losses, if not 100% of his losses, but one of them is by DQ and all the rest are by submission. So when Silva gets finished, it is by submission, and maybe Barriault hurts him. Maybe Silva shoots in on a takedown and Barriault finishes a guillotine or something. So Marc-Andre Barriault by submission at plus 1600. That's a trifecta bet on my betting template here. And I'm seeing a lot of value in both of them. But I also think that the Barriault money line at minus 140 is something that's probably going to cash. But you really got to tread lightly with this fight, because there's a good chance that the first time Barriault gets hit clean, that this fight could be over. Even with somebody as disinterested as Bruno Silva being in the cage against him, it could absolutely still happen. So Barriault by decision is the official pick for this fight. So we got Sam saying it's hard to back Santos when he can't make weight to save his life. He's fighting at 145 pounds, Sam. So they finally made this dude move up. So it's no longer at bantamweight. And that awesome performance, it wasn't an awesome performance, but it was an awesome finish in the John Castaneda fight. That fight took place at a catch weight of 140 pounds. And, Santos looked really good in that fight and very durable, great recoverability, because he got hit clean a couple times in the first round with left leg head kicks by John Castaneda there. So he's probably going to have a much easier time making weight now that he's fighting up at 145. And if his durability holds up against the increased amount of power that he's going to see at this division, I think that style that he fights with is going to suit him really well. And I know it's up in weight, but I got Lee in underdog money, and I think he has the skills to win a decision. Well, good. You did your job, because he's already at favorite money now, Sam. So good job on reading that there was a discount for that money line, and you beat your line. You did your job, and right now we see Santos at plus 101, and Lee is the minus 120 favorite. He's even minus 130 right now on Bovada Sportsbook. So, but let's move on to the next fight, which is going to be Navajo Stirling versus Ivan Erslan. And we've got Navajo Stirling, the minus 305 favorite, Erslan, the plus 245 or 255 underdog. And the fight doesn't go to decision for this fight, sitting at minus 180. Let's get that ad off the screen there. All right, perfect. And we'll keep the stats up here while we talk about the stylistic components of this striker versus striker matchup here. So, this is going to be a fun one. Striker versus striker matchup, light heavyweight division. Both of these guys have big power in their strikes, so it should be a fun fight to watch. Navajo Stirling is a hyped 27-year-old kickboxer who trains at City Kickboxing in New Zealand. Navajo has a professional kickboxing background. He won the King of the Ring tournament twice and held the WKBF World Kickboxing title. He's new to the sport of MMA, having less than 3 years of pro experience, and only 6 pro fights, but he's 6 wins and 0 losses over that stretch. He was the Shuriken Fight Series and the Hicks Fight Series light heavyweight champion, and he's been priced as a minus 340 favorite over Philip Latu on Dana White's Contender Series and a minus 1,000 favorite over Tuco Tokos in his UFC debut. So the betting markets really believe in this kid's skill set. Ivan Erslan is a 33-year-old Croatian boxer with a 14-win and 4-loss pro record who lost his UFC debut against Ivan Cutelaba by split decision 7 months ago. Ivan has a ton of power in his hands. He has a 10-win and 1-loss career record to the knockout, and 11 of his 14 wins come in round 1. Ivan is the much more experienced fighter in this matchup with 13 more professional fights, 60 more minutes of pro cage time, and a sizable strength of schedule advantage as a professional. This is a big step up for Navajo Stirling, going from Philip Latu and Tuco Tokos to Ivan Erslan. Erslan is very dangerous on the feet, and he's shown the ability to control his opponents on the mat when he gets into top position. I haven't seen Ivan wrestle offensively on his tape, but he's a very solid anti-grappler who's heavy on top with solid ground and pound. So Stirling does not want to wind up on his back underneath this dude. While this fight is on the feet, I think both guys are going to be live to land massive shots. However, I rate Stirling as the cleaner and more diverse striker with the better long-range weapons. I think Navajo is far more likely to win the minutes of this fight while it's at distance striking range, and that is really important because I've never seen Ivan wrestle offensively. If Ivan had any offensive grappling game at all, I'd think he could keep the distance striking exchanges close enough and win enough minutes with his wrestling and top control to pull this fight out as an underdog. But Ivan doesn't wrestle, and at 33 years of age, I'm not sure if he has the ability to make it work at this level now. So I have to favor Stirling to keep this fight standing for most of the fight. If that's how this fight takes place, I see Stirling throwing more, landing more, and winning the minutes and moments while this fight is at range and eventually getting his hand raised. I'm going to side with the guy who's 6 years younger, 1 inch taller, that has a 4-inch reach advantage, and the better minute and moment winning skills where I think the majority of this fight takes place, and that's at distance striking range. This is kickboxer versus boxer. Go watch Ivan Erslan. Go watch his tape, and then take a drink every time he throws a kick. And you're going to be sober after watching about an hour and a half of footage because this guy never throws kicks. He never does anything offensive in terms of wrestling. So he's just a very, very predictable striker. And against somebody like Navajo Stirling, who's not just good with his hands, but also is a kickboxer who has a much wider and diverse array of weapons to go to, I think that it's going to be just a matter of time before he finds the off button. He beat the shit out of Tokos, and somehow Tokos was able to survive. But I think if Stirling lands big on Erslan, who's a guy that we've seen finished in 2 of his 4 losses, on the regional scene, I think that Stirling's going to find this KO. Excuse me. I think he's going to find it in the 2nd round. So that is going to be your pick. We're going to go with Navajo Stirling to win this fight by knockout because this is the perfect kind of opponent for him to get his 2nd UFC win against because he's one-dimensional. He's just going to throw hands, and he's going to be very predictable for the more diverse striker, the taller striker, the guy with more weapons in Navajo Stirling. So we're going with round 2 knockout for the 1-fight UFC veteran, Navajo Stirling. We got Rendog in the room saying, "Oh, what is up, Rendog?" And Damare is saying, "Are we just assuming Stirling's takedown defense is ass, or do we know it is?" It's not bad, actually, Damare. I'm not saying it's horrible. Tokos tried to take him down a few times, and Stirling did a good job in limiting his success. And when Tokos was trying to work towards submissions, Stirling did the right things, fought the hands, was able to get back to his feet, and get back to distance striking range. So he's going to get tested at a higher and higher level going forward. But I don't think that Ivan Erslan has got the kind of diverse skill set to give Stirling problems in the wrestling exchanges here. If he does, and that's something we just haven't seen from him yet, then I think he's going to be one of the better bets of the week, because I think that he can keep the distance striking exchanges kind of close because he has heavy hands and he can land. So I think Stirling's takedown defense is a work in progress, but he's at City Kickboxing. He's got great coaches over there. He's going to have a great room full of fighters that can challenge him. So I think it's going to get better and better, and I think it's already decent. So, but we need to find out more about this guy, and that's why I have no bets on this fight, because I don't want to lay minus 305 on a one-fight UFC veteran with with less than 3 years of pro MMA experience and on a very low strength of schedule. So Erslan has the strength of schedule advantage here, but I think Stirling is going to thrive where most of this fight takes place, and that's on the feet. All right, let's move on to the next fight, which is going to be Modestas Bukauskas and Yeong Cutelaba. This fight is very close to a pick'em right now, and the fight doesn't go to decision. It's sitting at minus 210. So an interesting fight from a grappler or from a gambling perspective to talk about here. And I think this line is way off, and you guys probably already know that I've already got a bet on Yeong Cutelaba. So let's talk about why. When I look at the strengths and weaknesses of each fighter, which are available in the fight write-ups, you see the Bukauskas has got some measurables advantages here. He's the bigger guy. He's 2 inches taller. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage. He's always had excellent conditioning for the light heavyweight division, and he's a hot fighter right now with a positive career trajectory, having won 4 of his last 5 fights since getting back to the UFC. But Bukauskas is a little bit low volume. As you can see right here, he throws less strike attempts than the divisional average, and he's less accurate and less defensively responsible than the rest of the division. He's also somewhat chinny, as we've seen him knocked down 4 times in 9 UFC fights. He's being knocked down on 1.2% of the strikes that land against him, and his UFC record to the knockout is 2 wins, but 3 losses. So I think that Cutelaba is going to have a little bit of a durability advantage here due to, both of these guys have been knocked down and knocked out at the UFC level, but you look at who's knocking down or knocking out Cutelaba and compare it to Bukauskas, and you see that there's a definitely a strength of schedule advantage here on the Yeong side as well. So Yeong, more experience as a pro, more experience at the UFC level with 9 more fights and an hour more of octagon time. Strength of schedule advantage firmly on the Yeong Cutelaba side. I consider him to be the better distance striker. Now, that's going to be a little bit debatable, but if you look at Modestas Bukauskas against the lower level of competition, he lands less distance strikes per minute than Cutelaba does. He absorbs more distance strikes per minute than Cutelaba does. They have comparable levels of defense. Bukauskas is a little bit more accurate, but you see that they're landing knockdowns on similar percentages of the strikes that they land, but it's Bukauskas who's a lot more chinny than Cutelaba. So Cutelaba throws more, he lands more, he absorbs less, he's more durable, and he's got a little bit better power numbers as a whole. So I think that Cutelaba is probably going to be the better striker in this matchup. When it gets into the clinch and when it gets into the ground control situations, it's not even close. Yeong Cutelaba's dirty boxing in the clinch has been elite so far at the UFC level. If you're looking at the fight write-ups, you're going to see that Cutelaba's landing 4.4 clinch and ground strikes per minute spent in control time positions and only absorbing 1.8. So he's got a positive 2.6 differential, which is huge in those positions. And he's dominating with ground and pound when he gets the top position. And he's also winning the minutes, outlanding his opponents 124 to 68 in significant clinch strikes. So I think that not only is Cutelaba better at distance, I think he's going to be much better in the clinch and on the mat as well. And he's the better wrestler by a mile. and he's the more durable fighter. But Ewan does not have the best fight IQ, let's face it, and he can be unreliable at times. Sometimes he just shows up and looks like he's disinterested. So there's definitely some variance in his fights. He'll cash as an underdog, he'll shit the bed as a favorite, but Cutelaba's got a lot of on-paper advantages in this fight. So this should be an interesting matchup in the light heavyweight division. Both Modestas Bukauskas and Ewan Cutelaba are very experienced and well-tested fighters for being only 31 years of age. And both of these guys are looking career best at the moment. Modestas has won 4 of his last 5 fights since returning to the UFC, and he's coming off a career best performance against Rafael Cerqueira in his last fight. Ewan Cutelaba has won 3 of his last 4 fights, and his ground game looked much improved last time out against Ibo Aslan, submitting him in the first round with an arm triangle that was set up beautifully. I like the Cutelaba side quite a bit in this matchup, and I don't really understand why this line is so close. Maybe it's because Modestas is coming off a career best performance in his last fight, but it's blatantly obvious that Cutelaba is the far more experienced fighter, both overall and at the UFC level. He fought and beat the tougher strength of schedule at this level. I rate his striking as being at least as good as Modestas. He's far more dangerous with his dirty boxing in the clinch and with his ground and pound from top position. And he's the fighter who will be more likely to decide where this fight takes place and therefore win minutes and moments in the grappling exchanges and clinch exchanges of this fight. Both of these guys are the same age, so that's what makes the on-paper advantages on the Cutelaba side so compelling, because at 31 years of age, it's still possible for both of these fighters to be showing improvements. While this fight is on the feet, I expect Modestas to be very dangerous, and Ewan has been knocked down 3 times in the UFC. He has 3 UFC losses by way of knockout, and his distance striking defense is just over 50%. That being said, Modestas is also chinny, having been knocked out in 4 of his 6 pro losses and in 3 of his 4 UFC losses. He's been dropped 4 times in 9 UFC fights, and his distance striking defense is far below average at 52%. So at this point, because I favor Cutelaba's power and durability, not to mention the UFC experience, the strength of schedule, the control time striking, the grappling advantages in this fight. And I'm quite confident that the Ewan Cutelaba money line at close to even is a steal, unless there's something behind the scenes going on with Cutelaba that might affect his performance in this fight. I'd like Ewan to win this fight by knockout. I think he can knock down Modestas on the feet, and he also has the capability to finish fights with his vicious ground and pound. So Ewan Cutelaba by second round knockout is going to be the pick, and the Ewan Cutelaba money line is one of my favorite bets of the week, and I have 2 units on that money line at -102 as of right now. So we're going with Ewan the Hulk Cutelaba by KO in round number 2 as the pick for this fight. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat, and I'll try to unplug and plug in the camera one more time. Did we get it? No, we're getting like these bleeps, but no. Oi, we made it. I have to not touch anything now. Because like just even the slightest movement or touch could send this camera completely out of business. But it looks like your Uncle Weezy needs a new camera, so we're gonna get on that. But let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Braden saying, was it a money line bet on Cutelaba? Didn't happen to catch it on Discord. Yes, sir. Money line bet, and it should be here always in the Weezy's tracked bets here. You're gonna see the Katona money line bet, the prop bet for Radtke, the money line bet on Radtke. Oh, shit. I didn't post it? Oh, my God. I didn't post it in the fucking Discord. Did I post it in the Bukauskas Cutelaba room? Wow. I didn't post it. You got to be kidding me. Did I post it on Odds Shopper? think I posted it on the Odd Shopper. Yeah, it is in the Odds Shopper probability UFC stats package, 2-unit money line bet, but I fucked up and I didn't post it in the Weezy's tracked bets. That's my bad, you guys. Dude, even the greats make mistakes every once in a while, and your Uncle Weezy is definitely one of them. All right, definitely one of the greats, and definitely somebody who makes mistakes all the time. So my bad. Thanks for bringing that to my attention, Braden. Damari saying any cardio concerns for Cutelaba? No, not for me. Just because it's not like Bukauskas is ever going to fucking push a pace. The guy doesn't do shit out there, so I don't think he's going to tire Cutelaba out. And I think the most recent performance where he went to decision, Ivan Erslan fight, that fight, I thought Ewan, even though he lost the third round after banking the first two, he showed pretty good cardio, but he did lose that third round. So there's no question, Damare, that I rate Bukauskas as having the better cardio, and I said that much in the breakdown when we talk about strengths and weaknesses of both fighters. But yeah, Bukauskas has the better cardio, but I don't think he's gonna just put a pace on Cutelaba and break him. And I think that Cutelaba definitely has a lot of grappling upside in this fight. We got Sam saying, "Whoa, Uncle Weezy in the building." Yeah, man. I don't know why the camera is so what do you call it? Temperamental today, but yeah, it may shut back off, but we'll see. You posted the bet, Uncle. I believe it was your first bet. It was the first bet, and I posted it, but I didn't post it to all the places that I normally post it in the Discord. So yeah, that's on me. But I'll do that later on. We'll get it going. But either way, you guys, let's move on to this next fight, which is going to be what? Good fight here. We got Jessica Andrade versus Jasmine Jasudavicius. We got Jasmine a big favorite at -320. We got Jessica plus 270 is the underdog, and we know that she has a path to victory here. And the fight doesn't go to decision. A little bit of juice on it, something you don't see a lot in women's fights at -115 here. So let me get the stats up here on the screen for you guys, and we're going to talk about this great matchup in the women's flyweight division between two elite fighters in that division. But Andrade does her best work when she's down one weight class at the strawweight division. So Jessica Andrade has got an interesting advantage here, you guys. She's 2.5 years younger than Jasmine, but she's also the far more experienced fighter. And that's a combination of attributes that I've got to find if there's statistical significance to it. Because I like that combination of attributes. You give me the younger fighter, which is something that's very important, and you give me the fighter that's got more high-level experience, the strength of schedule advantage, 19 more fights at the UFC level, 135 more minutes in the UFC octagon, 5-round championship experience, main event experience, strength of schedule advantage, striking advantage, power advantage, all on the Jessica Andrade side. But she's undersized at 125 pounds, and she's very inconsistent in her performances. I think these days you want to bet Andrade as an underdog and fade her as a favorite, because sometimes she shows up and looks great when you don't expect her to, and then like she'll go out there against Yan Xiaonan and get knocked out by somebody who's knocked out nobody at the UFC level. So Andrade, there's a lot of variance in her performances, especially recently. Now, Jasudavicius is 6 inches taller, and she has a 6-inch reach advantage, and she's going to be just the bigger, more physical fighter in this matchup. She's a hot fighter right now with a very positive career trajectory. She's extremely durable, as is Jasudavicius, while we've seen Jessica Andrade be finished in 8 of her 11 losses. We've never seen Jasmine finished, and we've seen her show a lot of grit and guile and a very reliable chin. The control time striking in the clinch and on the mat, Jasmine does amazing work there, and I rate her as more likely to win minutes in the clinch and on the mat with her strikes. And I think that obviously Jasudavicius has the grappling advantage here. And the weakness in Jasudavicius's game is her striking. She's only been a pro fighter for less than 6 years, and wrestling is her base. So the striking has always been kind of like a work in progress, and she's always been a little bit behind the curve when it comes to that. But this is a striker versus grappler matchup between two high-level fighters. Jessica Andrade is a former strawweight champion who's been bouncing back and forth between 115 and 125 pounds, and she's had a lot of variance in her recent performances. She ran through Mackenzie Dern as a plus 170 underdog, knocking her out in the second round. But 2 fights before that, she got knocked out in the first round by Yan Xiaonan as a minus 180 favorite. So Jessica is a kill or be killed fighter who brings a lot of pressure, has a ton of power, and high-level experience on her resume with 28 fights in this organization alone. Jessica has seen the top of the mountain, which is where Jasmine Jasudavicius is trying to get. Jasmine is a hot fighter with a positive career trajectory. She's currently on a 4-fight win streak, and she has been dominant over that stretch. Jasmine has excellent wrestling, suffocating top control, and nasty ground and pound. And she's winning 94% of the control time positions in her fights. 94%, you guys, that's elite. She gets 48.5% control time and only allows 3.1% control time to her opponents. So 50% of her fights were taking place in control time positions, and she's winning 94% of those positions. So, her opponents have to absolutely destroy her in the distance striking exchanges in order to have a chance to beat her. So, Jasmine is very durable. She's mean, and she has above average size and strength for the division. This fight is going to come down to whether or not Jasmine can get takedowns and top control. Jessica is the far more dangerous striker while this fight is on the feet. She has crazy pressure, and she throws powerful hooks when she finds her way into the pocket, and she has rare fight-stopping power for this division. Jasmine is going to be so much bigger than Jessica, and that is the problem with backing Jessica Andrade in this fight. Jessica is a true strawweight, and she struggles the most when her opponents are more physical than her on the mat and have the ability to get takedowns like Suarez and Shevchenko did against her. Jessica has never been an elusive fighter. She's never had the ability to manage range and win like a point fighting battle. She uses pressure and power in the pocket to make up for her lack of size or technical superiority. And that kind of pressure is going to put her into the clinch with Jasmine, who's incredibly strong there. Once Jasmine gets takedowns and consolidates top position, the size difference is going to be too much for Jessica to overcome. And I see Jasmine being able to finish the fight in the second or third round with either ground and pound or a submission, because Jessica has been historically easy to finish in the UFC. I think Jessica is better built to stop takedowns at 115 pounds, but against a massive wrestler with elite takedown efficiency and top control, this is a horrible matchup for Jessica Andrade. So I'm going to pick Jasmine Jasudavicius to win this fight by a second round ground and pound KO. So we're going Jasmine by KO in round 2 over the very handsome Jessica Andrade. And I like the Jasmine money line as a parlay piece this week. I think Jasmine inside the distance at plus 185 on draft. I think it's Bet Rivers Sportsbook is a good look this week. And if you're going to back the Jessica Andrade side, you guys, Jasmine Jasudavicius is notoriously durable, but Jessica can win moments that can help her bank rounds. So my favorite bet on the Andrade side that is a really wide number and takes advantage of the fact that Jasmine has elite durability would be this almost trifecta bet of Jessica Andrade by decision at plus 700. Look, if this gets to the judges' scorecards and Vegas is in a place where they need a parlay buster, who better than somebody as handsome as Andrade, who can get the attention of the cage side judges and kind of let them know you're picking me, So that plus 700 is a really big number, and my model says it's extremely underpriced at that number. And my model and my stylistic read is that if Jessica wins this fight, it's got to be by decision because Jasmine is just going to be extremely difficult to finish. So I think that's a cheeky look for this fight. But the pick is going to be Jasmine Jasudavicius. Jasudavicius inside the distance is probably going to be a 1-unit bet at plus 185 this week. And I might parlay her with somebody that we're going to talk about a little bit further on down the road here. Let's see what you guys are saying. We got Roger in the room saying Ewan has leveled up his last couple of fights. He's improving. I agree with that, man. The jiu-jitsu looked better. He's a newly minted purple belt. And I think that that if he does level up his Brazilian jiu-jitsu, one of the things that Ewan has done is just kind of gotten sloppy, looking for finishes on the ground. And if he could kind of slow down his process on the mat, I think he'll be able to find some submissions occasionally, but also he'll be less likely to fall off the back of his opponents, get reversed, just do dumb shit when he has the capability to win minutes and bank rounds with his top control. So I agree with that. I think Ewan is a guy that's looked really good in the last 2 fights and is cashed as an underdog both times, I believe. So I think it's a good spot for him again this week against a fighter that I think is at a lot of deficiencies against Ewan Cutelaba. All right, let's move on to the next fight. And it's going to be an absolute band burner as we got Mike Proper Malott going up against Chuck Buffalo Charles Radtke. We got Mike Malott, the minus 164 favorite, fighting in his home country of Canada. And we got Charles, the pride of Chicago, Radtke at plus 144 on the comeback. And we got the fight doesn't go to decision here, sitting at minus 200 for this fight. I think that's a pretty good potential parlay piece this week. This is a hell of a fight, and I can't wait to break it down with you guys here. So let me get my fight right up here. I'm going to get a sip of water, and then we're going to talk one of the most exciting fights on this card. All right, you guys. So Mike Malott, I think I said this on Stat Diggers or on maybe it was on Clint's show, or like if you were to have a video game and you were to create your own fighter, you'd kind of create somebody like Malott, somebody that's a finisher, somebody with, really opportunistic Brazilian jiu-jitsu, really technical, clean striking, dangerous wherever the fight goes, good looking, marketable, likable, all American kid, but all North American kid because he's not really United States of America, and he's all of those things, He's the much cleaner and prettier fighter, Chuck Radtke, not so much, He flips off the crowd. He calls everybody faggots. He, he's a little bit dirtier. He talks a lot of shit, He's not very polished. He's not very marketable. You know what I'm saying? But man, Charles Radtke fought a lot of his career down at 155 pounds. And since moving up to 170, when he hasn't had to make that crazy cut to 55 anymore, he's really had a career resurgence late in his careers. Both of these guys, Mike Malott, 33 years old, Radtke, 34 years old. So these guys are, getting, they're on the back nine of their careers at this point. But And as you would expect with a guy like Malott, he's got a lot of on-paper advantages in this fight over Charles Radtke. He's 1.5 years younger. He's 3 inches taller. He's got a 1-inch reach advantage. So younger and bigger and longer, right? He's got the UFC experience advantage, although it's a small one with only one more fight, 20 more minutes of octagon time. In my opinion, he's got the strength of schedule advantage. There's kind of like one really tough matchup for Radtke. It was the loss to Pratesh. But, Malott's been out there against real veterans like Magny and Giles, while also beating up on some bums like Fugit and Leonis and Mickey Gall. But I think that Mike Malott is probably going to be the better minute winner in the striking exchanges. He doesn't throw quite as much volume, but he's, just got really clean striking, puts together some really nice combinations. And I think he's got the grappling advantage, in my opinion. Not necessarily like the submission grappling advantage. I think both guys are dangerous there. But, I mean, if you look at the guy who's been able to go out there and actually win minutes with his grappling at the UFC level, go out there and get takedowns, go out there and spend some time in top position, go out there and threaten with his submissions. It's Mike Malott. So, but the cardio and the durability and maybe the heart are a little bit in question on the Malott side. He's been finished in both of his pro losses. And, we kind of saw him break against a guy in Magny who's not really a finisher. Now, Charles Radtke's got a little bit more pro experience, 50 more minutes of pro cage time. He's got the moment winning in the striking exchanges because he just got crazy power in his left hook. It's one of the most dangerous weapons in the division right now, and that's no bullshit. I know he's not a top 20 fighter, but if Charles Radtke lands his left hook, I mean, it's nighty-night, keep your butthole tight. So I think Radtke's just the more dangerous guy while this fight is on the feet. And I think that we can count on his durability and his heart and his scrappiness a little bit more. But, Charles Radtke's undersized for this division. And Mike is going to be not only the younger guy, but the bigger guy and the longer guy as well. So let's see here. I think this is going to be a very exciting fight between two very well-matched fighters. Both Mike and Charlie used to fight in lower weight classes. Both guys have been inactive as professionals, fighting about once a year. Both are close to 35 years of age. Both guys are very well-rounded fighters who are capable and dangerous wherever the fight goes. Now, both guys also have been in solid form of late, having won 4 of their last 5 fights, and both guys are coming off a win. Mike is definitely the more hyped fighter that gets a lot more respect from the betting markets. He's been priced as a favorite in each of his last 5 fights, while Radtke has only been priced as a favorite twice in his last 5 fights. Mike has not been living up to the price tag in his recent performances in the Magny and the Giles fights, but it's very clear that he's a very technical and well-rounded fighter with very few weak spots in his game outside of maybe the durability in the heart, but that's a little bit more subjective. But the cardio that was put on display at the end of the Magny fight was concerning, and what was even more concerning was the fact that Mike seemed to really slow down his pace in the next fight, and that's sometimes a symptom of somebody who doesn't trust their cardio, so they are much less, because if Mike's out there worried about getting tired, I don't want to back that guy at juice if he's got a 100% finish rate, because in order to finish fights, you have to go for it. You have to sell out. And if you're afraid of getting tired, you're probably not going to be as likely to do that. So I think that's one reason to really like Charlie as a underdog in this fight. We still have a lot more to learn about Charles Radtke, though, at the UFC level. 3 of his 4 fights ended in the first round, and the fight that went the distance against Blood Diamond spent about 2/3 of the fight in the clinch. It's clear that Radtke is very good at range, in the clinch and on the mat, and I think he can finish fights with the power in his hands or with his opportunistic Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think this fight is going to come down to durability, and I favor Radtke there. Mike is definitely the fighter with more advantages on paper. He's 3 inches taller. He has a 1-inch reach advantage. He's 1.5 years younger, has a little more UFC experience against the better brand of competition, and I rate him as the better minute winner in the striking and probably the grappling exchanges too. But I just don't like how Malott deals with adversity, and Radtke is going to give him plenty of that. All the on-paper advantages Malott has in this fight go out the window if Radtke lands that left hook clean just once. And I believe Radtke's grappling game is being underrated by the market. Seeing Malott be a lot more patient against Giles and Magny, 2 guys who aren't nearly as dangerous as Charles Radtke is, make me think his finishing skills aren't going to translate against mid to upper levels of the UFC welterweight division. And if Malott has to go a full 15 minutes, he's going to slow down and have his heart, durability, and conditioning tested. Mike Malott thrives when he controls the pace of the fight, and he's able to find the weak spot in his opponent's skill set and exploit it. And that works against guys like Shimon Smotriski, Mickey Gall, Johan Lannis, and Adam Fugit. But now that the opponents are getting tougher and more well-rounded, I'm not seeing Mike look as confident or as precise. If Charles chooses to wrestle, he's going to have to watch his neck because Malott's guillotine is phenomenal. I think fight doesn't go to decision as a solid play this week and a potential parlay piece. Both of these guys have lights out power. Both of these guys have opportunistic Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and both guys have been finished multiple times as professionals. But I'm going to side with the guy that I think has more dog in him, and that's Charles Radtke. I think Charles pressures Mike, gets him on the back foot, looks to land that left hook, and wears on him in the clinch. And if he's able to avoid getting clipped by Mike if he's able to avoid putting his neck in a bad spot, I think the pace, pressure, and power of Radtke eventually find the off switch on Malott. I'm picking Charles Radtke to win this fight by second round knockout. Radtke inside the distance at plus 315. Radtke finish only at plus 195. And the Radtke money line at plus 185 all have my attention this week. That I wrote a few days ago when I made the bet on the Radtke money line, but that's moved quite a bit. This is a high-level fight between two very dangerous and well-rounded fighters, and I can't wait to see how it plays out. But if Radtke goes into enemy territory in Canadian and finishes Mike Malott, the post-fight interview is going to be epic. So I am going with Charles Chuck Buffalo Radtke to win this fight by second round KO and give proper Mike Malott a proper ass shaving. There we go, you guys. Let's see what you hoes are saying in the chat here. And you ain't saying shit. So let's move on to the next fight, which is going to be one we're not going to really talk about. Benoit Saint-Denis versus Kyle Prepolec. The thing that we are going to talk about and that I think is important is that Kyle was scheduled to fight a good fighter in Michel Dufour Saturday. Or maybe, no, it was Friday. It was Friday. So he was already in training camp. He was already peaking and ready to fight this weekend. So Kyle is a striker. He's going to be somebody that's going to keep the fight standing. He's got, I don't have the stats up in front of me because I didn't add his stats to the because he's not even in my database because this guy hasn't had a UFC fight in several years. But I think it's important to note that he was scheduled to fight so that this isn't like your typical short notice, like I just got up off the couch and now I have to fight Benoit Saint-Denis. And Saint-Denis was, preparing for a different type of opponent in Joel Alvarez as well. So there's going to be some uncertainty in the Saint-Denis camp about how they're going to probably game plan for somebody like this on less than 1 week's notice. But Prepolec was never, a high-level UFC fighter while he was here. He lost decisions to Nordine Taleb and Austin Hubbard while he was here. And then he's been fighting on the Canadian regional scene in organizations like Battlefield Fight Championship or some shit. I mean, it's Benoit Saint-Denis should be able to run through this dude. And Kyle is somebody that I think is probably going to get taken down early and often in this fight. And it's just a difficult style because Benoit Saint-Denis is just, a constant wave of offense, a constant wave of refusing to fuck off. Big, powerful kicks to all targets on the body. Every punch is thrown with 100% power in it, looking to knock you out. And every takedown is shot, trying to put you through the canvas. And once you're there, he's looking to submit you from every possible position. So this is just an absolute nightmare of an opponent, especially if you were training for a technical, well-rounded fighter like Michel Dufour. Now you're getting a guy that's going to be out there looking like he just took a long line of meth, and he's just going to go out there and just give you offense until you break. So it's going to be Benoit Saint-Denis to win this fight by first round submission. I think he's going to take this dude down and just absolutely style on him, beat the fuck out of him with ground and pound until he gives up his neck. And I think it's going to be really quick night for Kyle Prepolec. Collect your show check and head home and lick your wounds. So don't like this spot for Prepolec. Gigantic favorite, Benoit Saint-Denis. And when you see somebody at that price, it makes their money line unbettable. I mean, really the only value side here is the Prepolec side, and it's kind of hard to find paths to victory for him against a fighter of this quality. So yeah, let's just leave it there with Benoit Saint-Denis by first round submission. Next fight, Alexa Grasso versus Natalia Silva. We got Grasso as a plus 215 underdog. We got Silva, the minus 255 favorite. And the fight doesn't go to decision here, sitting at plus 290. So the bookies see this one going to the distance almost 80% of the time. So there are the stats for us. And let's talk about this awesome fight in the women's flyweight division. Now, yep, I finished this. So this is a great opportunity for Natalia Silva to insert herself into the title picture of this division. Alexa Grasso is the former UFC flyweight champion of the world, but she lost that belt 7 months ago by getting rinsed on the mat by Valentina Shevchenko for 5 consecutive rounds. Alexa's last 3 fights were all against Valentina, and she went 1 win, 1 loss, and 1 draw over that stretch against the best fighter in the world in this division. So it's clear that even though Alexa had a bad performance last time out, that she's still fighting at a very high level. Excuse me. Now, Natalia Silva has looked phenomenal so far in the UFC, getting off to an undefeated 6-0 start against a solid level of competition. Natalia has dominated the distance striking exchanges of her fights while displaying fantastic anti-grappling and defense, stuffing 22 of the 24 takedown attempts against her. I think Natalia is going to be champion of this division at some point. She's the fastest fighter in the division. Her footwork and lateral movement make her almost impossible to find unless you relentlessly pressure her. And if you do that, Natalia has the necessary power and precision to make you pay dearly on the way in. Her long-range weapons are unique and accurate, and her elite conditioning allows her to move continuously and throw a ton of volume that is highlighted by a diverse kicking attack that allows her to keep a safe distance while managing to score points. I don't see Alexa being able to close the distance against Natalia, and unless she sells out with the pressure, I see Silva picking her apart at range and potentially even finishing her. Valentina Shevchenko is keeping the belt warm for Natalia right now, and I see Natalia cruising her way to a decision win in this fight. So the pick is going to be Natalia Silva to win by decision. And I just think that her style right now is going to be just virtually impossible to deal with. And what's tricky about betting Silva right now is that eventually somebody's going to beat her, and they're going to beat her in a way where it's probably going to look obvious, and people are just going to be like, oh yeah, that's how you beat her. You know, I should have known, you know, that's what would have worked, but we don't know what that is right now. You know, we don't know what the blueprint is to beating Silva. Silva's got plenty of losses on her record, but they came a long time ago when she was very young and very raw as a fighter. So now that she's blossomed into this fighter that we've seen fighting at a very high level here in the UFC. And I mean, you look at Natalia Silva's strength of schedule. She made her debut against Jasudavicius, about as tough of a debut as you can get. And she looked phenomenal in that fight. Then she gets an extremely difficult opponent in Teresa Bleda the next time out, somebody that is going to sell out for the grappling and that is absolutely gigantic for the division. And she wins that fight and looks really good in the second and third rounds after Bleda gasses out, selling out for the grappling. And then after that, she beats Victoria Leonardo, does it with style. But then, you know, the fights after that, you know, Andrea Lee easily styles on her way to a unanimous decision. Same thing with Vivi Araujo. Jessica Andrade pressures her relentlessly, walks her down for the full 15 minutes. And I would say Natalia absorbed about 2 strikes that looked meaningful while catching her at least a dozen times on her way in with massive strikes that were just like oohing and eyeing the crowd. So I think Natalia Silva is very special. I don't know what kind of a style it's going to take to beat her, but Alexa Grasso doesn't have that style. There's no offensive grappling upside here. She averages 0.4 takedowns per 15 minutes. She controls her opponents for only 10% of her total octagon time, and she's only winning 27% of the control time positions in her fights. Now, Natalia is only winning 21% of the control time positions in her fights, but when you look a little bit closer, she's only been taken down twice on 24 attempts, and she's not taking any damage in the clinch or on the mat. So Natalia Silva's grappling defense, anti-grappling, defensive wrestling, whatever you want to call it, it's fucking elite. Her defensive footwork at distance striking range is absolutely elite. And I think Alexa Grasso is just extremely basic on the feet. She's a boxer. She needs to pressure a little bit, but she doesn't have the kind of relentless pressure or one punch fight or, ending power you're gonna need to have in order to beat an elite point fighting distance range manager in Natalia Silva with 66% distance striking defense, who's landing twice as many distance strikes per minute than she's absorbing. So I think Natalia wins this fight, and frankly, I think she's going to make it look pretty easy. So Natalia Silva by decision. The Silva money line at minus 255, I think, is a fine parlay piece this week. And I think Natalia Silva by decision at minus 132 is going to cash. And I think that even potentially Natalia Silva inside the distance at plus 525 is something that we could see happening as well, because she was known for having a very good armbar on the regional scene. And Natalia Silva's got real power and precision in her strikes. So I could see her finding like a spinning back kick to the liver potentially that knocks out Grasso. So yeah, I even think that inside the distance at plus 525 is a very playable line that my model likes quite a bit. Sorry, I got something in my eye that's just fucking pissing me off right now. All right. Let's move on to the next fight here, as we've got 3 more fights left to break down, and it's going to be Jose Aldo at minus 192 going up against Aiemann Zahabi at plus 167. Now, I don't have a write-up for this fight, and these types of fights are fights that I'm just not good at breaking down, fights that really aren't mixed martial arts fights, that are just pure boxing matches, and neither one of these guys really throws any kicks at all either. So it's going to be boxer versus boxer, counter striker versus counter striker, low volume offensive guy versus low volume offensive guy. Both of these guys can find a little bit of power. Both of these guys are elite defensively, and both of these guys have very similar distance striking metrics at the UFC level. It's just that Zahabi's a little bit more accurate, a lot more defensively responsible, and has flashed a little bit more power on the aggregate, but it's obviously Jose Aldo that's been fighting the way better brand of competition. You look at the combined records of Aiemann Zahabi's 8 UFC opponents, and you add up their UFC records, and it's 30 wins and 37 losses. Now, the 19 fights that I have for Jose Aldo since the year 2013, you add up those opponents' records, you get 241 wins and 130 losses. So, yeah, there is a grappling advantage on the Jose Aldo side that he's not going to use because he doesn't shoot takedowns. Both of these guys have elite takedown defense, so I think it would be a waste of time for either of these guys to even attempt to, grapple. I think if they're going to grapple, it would be with the intent of getting into the clinch and trying to win minutes while there, with some wall install and maybe with some dirty boxing. But this is a boxer versus boxer matchup between two low volume guys. So, I mean, this is absolutely dog or pass for me. And Aiemann Zahabi's 72% distance striking defense, the fact that this is at home in Canada, the fact that Zahabi's coach and brother, Firas Zahabi, is an absolute legend of the sport who always comes up with plus EV game plans for his fighters. I think that Zahabi not only is going to be able to keep the distance striking extremely close and potentially land the more powerful and pinpoint counter strikes while this fight is on the feet, but I also think Aiemann might be able to take this fight into the clinch and win some minutes there, because we just saw Batista go out there and easily hold Jose Aldo up against the cage. And we just saw 2 fights before that with Aldo against Merab Dvalishvili, where Dvalishvili didn't complete any takedowns, but still got like well over 10 minutes of control time because Aldo just hasn't been able to find his way off of the fence. So Zahabi, a little bit younger, a lot less miles on the engine, a little bit taller, and has really just been fighting good opponents in his last 2 fights with Pedro Munoz and Javid Basharat, coming through as a big underdog against Basharat and then beating, a tough striker and an all-around fighter like Pedro Munoz. Tells me that even though Jose's got this massive strength to schedule advantage, he's got way more miles on the engine, and he's probably the far more likely guy to have 1 foot out the door at this point. Aldo looked good against Jonathan Martinez, but Martinez is mostly throwing kicks while Zahabi's mostly throwing hands. So I think that these guys are going to be very well matched, and I'm going to go with the younger guy. I'm going to go with the more elite defensive fighter thus far that I've seen. I think the guy with a little bit more moment-winning upside, and maybe somebody that, because his brother is such a brilliant coach, somebody that will be able to figure out in the cage that they can also bank some close rounds with some clinch control time and some dirty boxing. I'm going with Aiemann Zahabi to win this fight by decision. There we go. Which brings us to the co-main event of the evening. Valentina Shevchenko, the plus 110 underdog. We got the champion priced as an underdog against the streaking Manon Fiorot, 12-fight win streak, undefeated thus far at the UFC level, elite striker, elite distance manager, and a very underrated grappler. Is it Manon's time, or is Valentina going to go back to being a dominant champion again here and defend her belt against the upstart striker in Fiorot? Let's talk about it. Let's bring these stats up on the screen for you guys, and let's talk about the fight write-up that I have for this fight. All right. So this is one hell of a title fight, and it's about time Manon got her shot at gold. She's undefeated thus far in the UFC at 7 wins and 0 losses, and she's on a 12-fight win streak. Manon has been outperforming market expectations in almost all of her fights, and her ability to safely win minutes with her high-volume striking style while limiting her opponent's ability to close range and grapple has made her a very difficult opponent to deal with. Speaking of difficult opponents, Manon is going to have to go through Valentina Shevchenko to get that belt, and Valentina has been the most dominant fighter in the history of this division, and it isn't even close. Valentina was on a 7-fight on a 7 title defense streak when she tried some spinning shit, got her back taken, and finished by rear naked choke as a minus 900 favorite versus Alexa Grasso. And outside of that moment, Valentina has always looked dominant fighting in this division. Valentina is a well-rounded fighter with excellent fight IQ who takes the path of least resistance to victory. If her opponent is weak on the mat, she grapples. If her opponent is an elite Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player, she keeps it standing. So Valentina has been a delightful fighter to back outside of a couple of different fights, one of which where she was lucky to cash as a minus 600 favorite versus Tyler Santos, and obviously dropping the ball as a minus 900 favorite is something that's going to scar you if you backed her there as well. But I think it's Manon's time, you guys. She's younger. She's bigger. She's more physical. She's the busier striker. She has elite takedown defense and distance management, and her kicks allow her to score points while her opponents fall behind on points, failing to close the distance and get into the pocket or find useful takedown attempts against her. I think Manon gets the job done by decision because she hasn't shown much power at this level, and Valentina is notoriously hard to knock down or finish outside of the first Grasso fight. Valentina won't be able to find a weak spot to exploit against Manon, and that makes me believe the younger, bigger, more physical fighter with the more effective distance and control time striking gets the job done and wins this fight by decision. Nice, France, stand up. and new Manon Fiorot by decision is the pick for this fight. You know, the stats tell a lot of stories here. And, you know, when you see that Valentina lands 4.1 distance strikes per minute and Manon is landing 6.4, and you see that there's really, you know, there's no power, right? Neither one of these ladies is just like starch and hose. They win minutes. Now, whether it's Valentina by controlling 70% of the control time positions in her fights and landing 1.5 distance strikes per minute for every one that she absorbs, you could see how she's doing that. She can get takedowns when her opponents can't stop them. She can land the heavier, more impactful strikes while she's at distance striking range. But Manon has that same ability to land 1.5 distance strikes for every one that she absorbs, but she's also doing it being the taller fighter, the longer fighter, the one using the better long range weapons with those sidekicks that she's just constantly scoring points with while not allowing you to close the distance on her while scoring points over and over and over again. And Manon's ability to be able to do that while also being bigger than all of her opponents and being able to limit their grappling success, as well as mix in the occasional takedown when she feels like it, because she's so much bigger and stronger than her opponents. Sometimes she can just totally surprise her opponents by even going for takedowns. And when she goes for them, she gets them, and she's winning 80% of the control time positions in her fights. So, you know, somebody's still got to prove to me that they can put Manon in spots where she's going to be uncomfortable, because she's extremely comfortable at distance striking range. She's extremely efficient managing the distance while she's there, and she's going to be bigger and longer and stronger than most of her opponents in this weight class. And she also is so strong and physical that she can mix in that grappling if she ever feels she has to do that. So, I think she has more ways to win this fight. I think she can even get takedowns if she wants them. It's just we haven't seen Valentina's defensive grappling tested very much. And Manon is somebody who you try to get into a rhythm against her, and she can upset that rhythm because she does have a very diverse array of attacks. And I think the size and physical nature of the way that she fights has really always been her secret weapon in this weight class. I think people think that somebody's going to exploit her grappling at some point, but that's not going to happen. She's been in there against some really good grapplers. Myra Bueno Silva, Jennifer Maya is a black belt. Rose Namajunas is a very high-level grappler. I mean, Erin Blanchfield is one of the most dominant grapplers in the division. She couldn't get anywhere near Manon. So I like Manon to win this fight. I think laying a little bit of juice on her works. I think her decision prop at plus 123 is going to hit. And I think you're going to see a new champion on Saturday night. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. We got Damare saying he's on the other side of this one. Can't ever pick the French to win a war. There you go. And we got Braden saying, love the read on this, but hard to bet against Shevchenko. And it is very hard to do that. You know what's even harder to do? Betting against Manon Fiorot. You've been shut out in 12 straight fights if you bet against Manon Fiorot. So, yeah, it's hard to bet against both of these ladies because they're elite fighters in the most elite division out of all the women's divisions. It's definitely the flyweight division that has the tightest log jam up at the top of the division between some very, very high-level fighters like Natalia Silva, like Alexa Grasso, like Valentina Shevchenko, like Manon Fiorot. So we're going to see all four of these ladies fight on Saturday night, and the future of the division is going to be on full display for us to watch in the country of Canada. All right, you guys, let's move on to the main event of the evening. Belal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena. We got Belal sitting around minus 180 right now. Jack Della sitting around plus 155. Fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at minus 170 for this fight. So I'm going to put the stats up on the screen for you guys. I'm going to get a little drink of water, and then we're going to talk about the main event of the evening. So on the Bilal side, you got the champion. You got the guy with more 5-round experience. He's got more experience as a pro, 9 more fights, 265 more minutes of cage time, 3.5 more years as a pro fighter. Bilal Muhammad has 12 more fights at the UFC level. He's got almost 4 more hours of time in the UFC octagon than Jack does. He's got the strength of schedule advantage. He's got the top control and ground striking advantage, and he's the better grappler. But Bilal Muhammad is at power and durability disadvantages in this matchup because Jack Della Maddalena is the much younger fighter. He's 8 years younger than Bilal. He's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage. He's got the better finishing ability, as we've seen Bilal only finish 6 of his 24 pro wins and only 3 of his 15 UFC wins, while Jack Della Maddalena's went out there and finished 5 of his 7 UFC wins. So he's definitely the better finisher. I rate Jack Della Maddalena as the more durable fighter. I think he's got the better striking, and I think he has more power on the feet. So, but Jack Della is easy to take down and hold down, and he will lose minutes on the mat to solid wrestler grapplers, and we've seen him make some really dumb decisions, jumping for guillotine like 4 different times against Basel Hafez, almost pissed that fight away from him. So when it comes to fight IQ, I mean, there's a big advantage on the Bilal Muhammad side there, and frankly, a lot more ways to win this fight. So this will be Bilal Muhammad's first opportunity to defend his welterweight championship of the world, and the challenger is a 28-year-old striker who has 7 wins and 0 losses so far in the UFC. Both of these guys are on incredible winning streaks at the moment. For Muhammad, it's 10 fights, and for Jack, it's 17 fight win streak. So neither one of these guys has been accustomed to losing. The pricing dynamics of this fight are very interesting because Bilal has been priced as an underdog in each of his last 5 fights, and Jack has been priced as a favorite in each of his 7 UFC fights. And this time around, Bilal is the favorite and Jack is the underdog. So there's been a massive shift in pricing for both fighters compared to their recent fights. Both of these guys are on long layoffs. Bilal had to pull out of a scheduled bout against Shavkat Rakhmonov in December due to a bad toe infection that required him to be hospitalized for a period of time, and he's currently on a 9-month layoff. And Jack Della Maddalena hasn't fought since March of 2024, so he's on about a 14-month layoff going into this fight. So there will be a little ring rust for each guy. Jack has never seen a 4th round in his professional career, so that's another concern on the Maddalena side, seeing how he handles the pacing and added pressure of a 5-round main event fight. This is being classified as a striker versus grappler matchup, as people expect Bilal to find success with his wrestling, and Jack will probably be the better minute and moment winner while this fight is at distance striking range. While this fight is standing, both guys prefer to be the one pressuring, and both guys do their best work when they have their opponents backed up to the cage. So seeing who wins the pressure battle is going to be very important in this fight. I favor Jack's output, combination punching, body work, and power and durability differentials while this fight is on the feet. Jack has landed 6 knockdowns and absorbed 0 over his 7 UFC fights, while Bilal Muhammad has landed 0 knockdowns and absorbed 6 in his 19 UFC fights. So I don't think Jack is way better than Bilal on the feet, but because he throws more and is likely the more dangerous moment winner, I feel safe saying he has the striking advantage in this matchup. Where Bilal really shines is when he has a wrestling or grappling advantage over his opponents. Bilal showed solid wrestling, top control, and ground and pound in the Leon Edwards, Vicente Luque, and Wonderboy Thompson fights that allowed him to easily win minutes and bank rounds. And that avenue of attack will be wide open against a minus wrestler grappler like Jack Della Maddalena. Bilal needs to wrestle in order to look like a favorite in this matchup because at distance striking range, Jack is faster, he throws more volume, he has way more power, He has a more dependable chin, and he will be able to match Bilal's pressure. Bilal is saying he's not gonna shoot a single takedown in this fight. And if that's true, I don't think he's gonna win this fight. Bilal got to the top of this weight class by fighting smart and using his well-rounded skill set to exploit the weaknesses in his opponent's game. And in order to continue doing that, Bilal needs to wrestle here. Jack is too young, too fast, and too powerful on the feet to try to win rounds against. It's just a matter of time before Jack finds your liver or clips your chin in the pocket, and Bilal hasn't shown dependable power yet in this division. Bilal needs to push a pace, make Jack grapple, and limit the distance striking exchanges of this fight to look like a minus 180 favorite and retain his championship belt. If Bilal's toe injury is compromising his ability to wrestle and forcing him to lean on his striking, I think we will find that Bilal does indeed need to fight to the weaknesses of his opponents to be successful at this level. I try not to pay attention to narratives, and as such, I'm going to assume that Bilal does what he always does, uses his well-rounded skill set to isolate the weaknesses in his opponent's skill set, exploits them, and clinically wins the minutes of this fight, banks the rounds, and gets his hand raised in a decision win. If you believe the narrative that Bilal shoots 0 takedowns and puts his Canelo hands on Jack Della Maddalena, then bet Jack's money line at plus money and watch him win this fight. But I think Bilal fights smart, wrestles, and exploits Jack's subpar takedown defense on his way to a decision win. So we're doing Bilal Muhammad to win this fight by decision is the final pick for this fight pad. So we've got Bilal Muhammad by decision and still. We got Manon Fiorot by decision and new. We got the hometown fighter in Zahabi pulling out a close decision against Jose Aldo. We got Natalia Silva winning a decision or potentially even getting a finish against Alexa Grasso. I got Benoit Saint-Denis by murder in round 1. I got Charles Chuck Buffalo Radtke to win by knockout in round 2. We got Jasmine Jasudavicius to win by KO in round 2. We got Yeong Cutelaba to win by knockout in round 2. We got Navajo Stirling to win by knockout in round what? Round 2. We got Marc-Andre Barriault to win by decision. We got Daniel Santos to win by KO 2. And we got Brad Katona, the most electric fighter in all of Canada, to win by decision over Bekzat Almakhan. So we got 2 more orders of business to go here. And one of them is going to be the Bootsy Collins Memorial Dogs Are Barking Pick of the Week. And that is going to be somebody that has that dog in him. Whoops. Hang on just a second. And let's see where the money line is for this individual. It is there. So we're going to write that down. Your Bootsy Collins Memorial Dogs Are Barking Pick of the Week is going to be the fighting pride of the great city of Chicago, Illinois. It's going to be the Charles Radtke money line at plus 144. If you're with me, and I know everybody that's watching this is because you are all a part of the Odds Shopper community, we got Charles Radtke at plus 195. And we got Charles Radtke by submission at plus 2,200 on BetOnline Sportsbook. Charles Radtke by submission at plus 1,600 is one of my favorite props this week. I think it's a huge upside and very possible. Charles is saying he's going to submit this guy, and I love getting him at plus money. I think he's well matched with Mike Malott in a lot of areas of mixed martial arts, but I also think he's the more durable fighter. I think he's the tougher fighter. I think he's got more heart, and I think he's got more power in his hands. So the Charles Radtke money line at plus 144 is going to be your Bootsy Collins Memorial Dogs Are Barking pick of the week. And we got one more order of business here, and it is going to be Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. We're coming off a win last week with Surrey City getting a win by decision. And this week, we got to find somebody that's going to get us a finish. It can't be a woman, so that's going to remove 3 of these 12 fights. It can't be Benoit Saint-Denis because he's minus 1,000. But it leaves everybody else, I would say, open to us. And, you know, we always want to find somebody that's going to win and win violently. But when we can do it for the right price, when we can do it for minus 130 or minus 140 or something better than minus 250 on the money line, that always gets us really interested. And value is such a very important part of this. And that's why we're going to go with a little bit of value this week, because it's somebody that wins fights, wins them in violent fashion. This individual's opponent is somebody that has been finished several times in their losses. And there are several differentials in several areas of mixed martial arts where I think Yeong Cutelaba has a gigantic advantage over Modestas Bukauskas. So your Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week this week is going to be somebody that's right around a pick 'em right now. And I'm picking them to not only win, but win violently, and violently cash us a money line ticket at better than a pick 'em. Violently cash us potentially an inside the distance bet at plus money, and cash the second straight Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week in a row for you guys. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. We got Damari saying, I've bet Belal Muhammad in every fight since the Diego Lima fight, and it doesn't stop here. And we got Braden saying, what do you think about betting the Belal decision over the money line? Thoughts on him potentially getting a late finish? You know, I don't think there's a lot of difference between the Belal Muhammad decision prop and the money line. We got minus 193 here on the money line, which is actually a little bit better than that. It's probably minus 179. You're getting minus 179 and you're getting plus 100. What was the Jack Della? The Jack Della was 154. So 154. Yeah, the decision prop of plus 100 has got a lot more meat on the bone. It's a 14% reduction in implied probability. But Jack Della Maddalena has never seen a 4th round in his career. And Belal is somebody that can absolutely push a pace on you. And we might find that Jack, succumbs to nerves. He's been on the long layoff here. So I would much rather just play the Belal money line here. If you think that he's going to win this fight and wrestle and fight in the fashion that he usually does, I think he can look much better than what his money line indicates that he will. So I don't think I would play the decision prop. I would think I would just play that money line. Don't get greedy and cash a bet if you think that he's going to be the guy to win this fight. And that's the guy I'm predicting to win this fight. So I think it's a good look. All right, you guys, we did it. We broke down all 12 fights. We gave you a dog pick of the week. We gave you Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. The fight write-ups are linked to the description of this video. And there is a 50% off discount code for those of you guys who still haven't switched over from the Dub Club or the Patreon. As 7 days from now, I will no longer be posting any content to those platforms. So get switched over. Take advantage of that 50% off promo code. Link in the description of the video. And join me over on the Odds Shopper team. And we're going to disconnect the Dub Club bot probably later on tonight or tomorrow and send out all the plays manually there for the last week so that we don't get any more disconnections of service in the Discord community. You guys, thank you for supporting your Uncle Weezy. Thank you for being a part of the Odds Shopper community. And, we don't get a lot of support here and providing good content in this space where your content has like a 3 or a 4 day shelf life before you have to do it all over again. It's a difficult way to make a living. So thank you guys for supporting me. Thank you guys for being a part of the community. Let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC 315. And I will be back tomorrow afternoon, 4 o'clock Central Time, doing a live stream of probability for you guys. And we will talk about the best plus EV bets to put our money on, where the value from my betting models lines up with the way that we see the fight taking place. so that we can find the best plus EV bets of the week to beat these bookies up and stack cashed tickets like flapjacks. Thank you guys for hanging out. We will see you tomorrow afternoon. And if you have any questions, holler at me in the Discord. Have a great night. Talk to you tomorrow.